Beautiful souls, your angels have a special, powerful message for you today, and it's this. You are needed in this world. You, yes, you, because your soul is here on purpose, for a purpose. Friends, it is your job to understand what that purpose is. And it doesn't just come by us sitting back and waiting for God, Universe, Source to drop it in our lap. That is what I see time and time again with the beautiful souls that I get to connect with. They'll tell me, Julie, I asked for a sign. Julie, I'm waiting for God to present me with it. And friends, what I need you to know, like you know, is this. God, Universe, Source, your angels, your spirit team, they put in 100% for you all the time, every time. And where that gets them is to the middle, okay? You are the other 50%. You put in 100% and it gets you the rest of the way. That is what free will is. Free will is your decision to understand your purpose or not. Free will is your decision to tune in, to turn over rock after rock after rock by exploring different things within this world that call to you. And as you explore those things, because friends, let me just tell you this, the angels, specifically the seraphim and seraphina, what they are begging you to accept within your heart is this. If something calls to you within your heart, if something piques your interest, that is the sign that you've been praying for. That is what I mean by they will call to you. They will call something to your heart. Your interest in it is the sign you've been waiting for to explore it. And friends, I've been bringing this through time and time again in my sessions. And before I forget, the angels just said to let you know, if you go over to my website, theangelmedium.com, go to the readings page. I now have it set up where you can book a reading with me directly over there because that's what the angels said that you need this year. And friends, if you let it air on the podcast, I'm giving you a special discount for that. So that's all over there, theangelmedium.com readings page. Okay, so I've been doing all of these readings, right? Maybe 10 a week right now. And what the angels keep saying is this. So I've been doing all of these readings, right? And here's what the angels come in and say time and time again. That most human beings, 90+%, expect that their purpose is just in one thing. That they're going to find their purpose. It's one sentence. You are here to write a book and get it published and get that message out to the world. And that they're just going to focus on one thing their whole life. What your angels want you to know is that as I have done readings for presidents, CEOs, entrepreneurs, what they will tell you if you are here at a conference with all of them, every successful person on earth, they know this. You are going to get called by the universe to head in a direction. You are going to go in that direction. You're going to get trained in that direction. You're going to become an expert in that direction. And you're going to keep going in that direction as long as God, Universe, Source continues to call you. But guess what? Along the way, everybody gets called to another higher purpose. So you're going along, maybe you even start off in your teens and your 20s and you're gung-ho in one area, and then you get called to another. And you go, God, Why did I focus on this in my younger years when I'm not going to use it in my middle years? And then you get called to another area, and then you get called to another area. Friends, what your angels need you to know is that it's all intertwined. So sometimes the thing that God was calling you to when you're 19 years old, it's going to aid you and serve you and be part of your purpose when you're 60. But what people don't get, because they don't think about this, they don't see this, is that they often think in their younger years, or a lot of times in their middle years, along the way they go, I don't know how I'm going to use that long term, so God, I know this is calling to my heart, but I'm just not going to do it. Friends, you can't do later on what you are called to do to the extent that you are called to do it, if you aren't going to participate in life the way that the universe has asked you to participate. And that is this: know that you have purpose. But that purpose is not just one thing. That purpose is to follow God your whole life. And even when you are successful and God goes, Julie, we got to make a change here. We got to shift directions. The winds are changing. We got to turn a little bit. You have to be ready to pivot. And that is what this year is, friends. And if you are listening to this in a different year, that is what God is calling you to understand right now. You are being called to pivot. You are being called to up-level your life. Is that scary? Absolutely. Is that a little bit nerve-wracking? Absolutely. But is it fun? Heck yeah, it's so much fun. Is it exciting? Heck yeah, it is so exciting. It's your choice which emotional vibrations you're going to tune into. You're going to tune into the fear? You're going to tune into the self-doubt? Or are you going to tune into that fun and that excitement and that exploration? Because you know what? I know, is God is changing the winds and bringing you in a different direction for two reasons. You have people God is trying to place in your path that you need, and they need you. And friends, you have lessons to learn and ways to serve, and your heart needs to feel fulfilled inside by serving. And in doing this and taking these steps that God Universe Source is calling you to, my goodness, you are going to feel more full in your heart, because you are going to be learning the lessons that you need. You are going to be serving in the capacity that you need. And life shifts in that moment when you make that decision. Friends, this isn't a popularity contest. This isn't about how much success that we can attain. There is abundance here to go around for all. This is about your soul. This is about the reason that your soul is here in this lifetime. And what I promise you is you cannot do in your 80s. You know, I love Betty White. You know why I love her? She was still working in her 90s. Still loving it, still having fun, still cracking people up with her humor. That's my role model. And I know that you can't be an up level where you need to be if you don't trust right now that God is leading you to what they're leading you right here, right now, for a reason. Because your angels, they don't just see what's in front of you. No. They see overhead, the helicopter perspective of your entire life and everything that's to come. So your heart is like this, beacon symbol, right? Where they're like, oh, they're going to need this in the future. We just send that signal to their heart. They're going to get the message. They're going to go do the thing. And they're going to realize 10, 20, 50 years down the road why we called them to do it right now. It is your free will to listen. So tune in, listen, and let them guide you on everything. 100 times a day, 1,000 times a day. Let them guide you. Friends, if you need help tuning in, everybody does. It's okay. Let me help you with that. The angel membership is there for your own personal relationship with your angels, to tune into your own personal intuition. And friends, the Angel Reiki School is there for anybody who wants to be a healer, angel messenger, medium, intuitive. We work on past lives. We work on color and seeing color. We work on helping you tune into animals and working with animals' energy. We make you a medium, angel messenger, energy healer all at once. That's the Angel Reiki School. And friends, we're in person April 11th, 12th, 13th in the Chicagoland area. It's one of the best suburbs here. It's called OakBrook, Illinois. You still have time to sign up. We're going to be doing this live every fall, every spring of every year. I don't know when the next one will be after this, but sign up. And when you sign up, if you don't want to come in person, you don't have to. You can come to the 8-week online Angel Reiki School, do everything right online. And if you want more information, join one of our calls. You can talk to me personally. I promise I don't bite. And normally there's just a couple of people on the call with us, and I can answer all of your questions right there. Friends, for a limited time, when you sign up for the 8-week online Angel Reiki School, you get to pick and come in person anytime you want within a year. So I love you so much, friends. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that we're doing a little construction, creating an entirely new podcast studio. Can't wait for that. Friends, today we have on Nicole Sachs. And for all of you empaths, and I know all of you are, Nicole's work is so incredibly spiritual. And she has written a new book that we are going to dive into. But you need this information that we're going to be talking about today. When it comes to emotions, your inner child, so many triggers that we have, and just we rack our brains all the time. Why are we feeling this way? It's creating a lot of chronic illness within us, which Nicole talks about in her new book. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Julie. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And you know what? I like to say it at the beginning and the end. Tell everybody where they can find your new book, The Cure for Chronic Pain, so that if we're going along today and they're like, oh, I have to get this one, where do they go to find your book?
Well, first of all, my podcast is called The Cure for Chronic Pain, but my book is actually called Mind Your Body. The Cure for Chronic Pain for years and years and years was my brand and will always be. But this book, and I just got my author copies in the mail, so I'm very excited. Woo-hoo. It's called Mind Your Body, and the best way to find anything about me, is to just go to NicoleSachs.com. You obviously can buy the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, Target, anywhere you buy books, but on my website, there's a book page, there's a podcast page where you can listen to my podcasts. You can search by whatever symptom or whatever concern you're having about your body. And there's just so many resources there to help yourself and heal yourself. So NicoleSachs.com is everything you need to know. And the book will be on sale on February 4th. And you can pre-order right this second. I don't know when your podcast is going to air.
Yeah. I'm so sorry I got those two confused. Mind Your Body. a revolutionary program to release chronic pain and anxiety. I'm so excited to talk about this because I really do feel that there's a huge correlation between empaths, chronic pain, and anxiety, which I want to dive into. So first and foremost, thank you for being here and thank you for doing the work that you do.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited to share it. It is the most stunning stuff when you start realizing how much power you have to affect your physical and emotional health.
Okay, so let me start here. I work with the angels, and there are different angels that work with different pieces of our lives. The seraphim angels come in a lot in my readings, and they'll tell a person that they have felt different since they were young, right? That they felt that everybody else around them seemed like they were in this normal club, and we just feel different in some way. I've been trying to understand over the years intuition, dopamine, hormones, and how this is all kind of functioning together, how we also break it apart to understand it. And one of the things that I really am kind of coming to a conclusion of is that a lot of highly empathic people too can be very neurodivergent, a lot of ADHD, and we as children, neurodivergent people, which I think is a much higher percentage of the population.
100%.
Yes.
I don't get me started on neurodivergence. Like, I feel that it's almost as if we can say everyone is neurodivergent because there is no normal. We're all so different. But I agree with you completely that it really needs to get a lot more attention.
For sure. So many people talk about feeling different, but there's another way that they also describe this is masking, that they had to mask who they were when they were younger because they would get shamed for who they were. So they decided, well, I'm just going to try and figure out how everybody else operates in order to fit in. But then what that did was take us away from feeling what we actually feel within our physical body. So I see so many people right now, because how do you get to the root of the problem, which is chronic pain, anxiety? How do you get to understand that if first and foremost, the big problem is a lot of people aren't feeling anything to begin with?
Oh my God. You just asked such a great question. And it has like about 10 different root systems that I could go into. So let me just figure out what I want to say first. So,
Yeah.
first thing I want to say is the concept of masking is something that we talk about often because, okay, so I'll tell you the basis of mind-body theory because I think that could be really helpful in answering your question. We are born into this world, and there are two things that are for sure. We have a nature. We have an innate nature. You could be an empath. You could be highly sensitive. You could be really, kind of robust and not have a lot of things get to you. You could be permeable or less permeable. You have a nature. And anyone who has children knows that if you're looking at nature versus nurture, you got to say both. Because I have 3 children and they couldn't be more different than each other. And they are all from the same parents and they were all raised the same way. So you have your nature, and then you have the way your nature interacts with your family, which with this family within which you have taken birth. And so here you are in this human incarnation, and you have to reconcile the nature that you're born with, which includes neurodiversity and this family system. And oftentimes people come to me and they say, Nicole, I didn't have capital T trauma. I wasn't severely abused or neglected, but I just feel so off, and I have all these different chronic conditions, or I have autoimmune conditions, or I have chronic anxiety. What's going on? It's not like I had a terrible childhood. And I try to explain to them that sometimes it's about that we are an energetic mismatch to our family of origin.
Yeah.
Maybe you are like inherently very sensitive and empathic, and you really feel deeply everything that is coming at you. And you're born into this very like extroverted, loud, or critical. We all have all of those examples. And sometimes you could be on the surface a match to the energy of your family, but somewhere inside, maybe you don't feel safe saying, I'm different, or
Mhm.
I think differently, or in my being, I kind of wish I didn't have to play this role. So it's all very human. And there's not one person that this happens to that is different than any other. In fact, one of my favorite sayings is, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides, because
Mm.
especially in the age of the internet and all the observing we do of other people's lives, it's so easy to be like, I'm the one who's different. The truth is, everybody feels that way.
Which is
Everybody
why
suffers.
there's scientific research too on how we all don't feel worthy. Like
Yes.
not just a couple people don't feel worthy in life, all people feel as though they're lacking in some way.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I did a training once that was so illuminating. And what I learned was that shame
Yeah.
has a shelf life. So, for
Mm.
example, we are born with the need for shame because we have to be socialized. So, when you're 3 and you take all your clothes off at the grocery store when your mom turns around, it is necessary when she turns and goes, "Oh my goodness, what are you doing? Get your clothes on." And you feel that sting of shame. It's
Yeah.
important, because if you're 8 and you take your clothes off, or if you're 18 and you take your clothes off, that might be a problem with you getting along in polite society, right? We have to live together.
Sure.
And so shame actually is important. When you're standing on the table in kindergarten and your teacher turns around and maybe raises her voice and all the other kids kind of look down and you feel ashamed, we need that. We cannot stand on the table. Do you know what I'm saying? So, like,
Yes.
shame is important, but this is the problem. Shame has a shelf life. Everybody has a different time period, but let's call it between 5 and 7 years. By the
Mhm.
time most people who have some sort of ability for self reflection are about 5 to 7 years old, they know enough about fitting in and about doing what needs to be done to thrive as they
Mhm.
grow in our interactive society. But the problem is, we keep that disgusting mold growing product in our refrigerators for a lifetime. So it has a
Mm.
shelf life, it expires, but we don't know it. And then we start applying it to everything. I'm not worthy.
Ooh.
Oh my God, I just most spoke in that conversation. I'm going to perseverate on that all night. I'm going to be up at 3 in the morning thinking about how I could have said something differently. This is where, I believe that all change, all growth, all positive energy comes through awareness. That awareness is the door through which everything becomes possible. So I seek, honestly, first and foremost in my work. I mean, I obviously have this book that I'm so excited because it's going to teach you exactly how to completely heal yourself. But I start with awareness. I just want to wake people up and say, oh my
Yeah.
God, you have power.
Mm. Yeah. It's incredible. So, going back to that emotion, for those who are like, oh, Nicole, it is hard for me to feel into my physical body. What have you found that helps the most to begin feeling again?
So I like to tell people that oftentimes they don't realize it, but sometimes we feel things in our hearts and
Hmm.
sometimes we feel things in our bodies, and they are literally interchangeable. So
Hmm.
I always have to lead with anyone who's in pain or struggling with any sort of symptoms or conditions or the symptoms of chronic anxiety. The pain is not in your head. You are not making it up. You are not hysterical. You're not overly sensitive, and you are not at fault.
Yeah.
Period, the end.
Hmm.
And what I'm teaching you, you already believe. So I
Hmm.
could be in a room of 1,000 people and I could be lecturing and I could say, raise your hand if you've ever had a stressful day and gotten a headache. This is my favorite example. And every hand will go up because I don't know one person who's ever, who's never had a stress headache, right? And then I'll
Yes.
say, okay, keep your hand up if you ran to the ER that night for a CT scan of your brain, certain that you had a brain tumor. And of course, everybody laughs and they put their hand down. And I say, what I'm teaching you, you already believe. Your emotions, even though people hear the word emotions and they think that it lightens the subject, Your emotions are directly connected to the way you feel into your physical body. You know, you hear about a comedian about to go on stage and they run to the bathroom and throw up. You don't think they got the stomach virus all of a sudden. You think they were really scared and they got
Yeah.
sick. You know, you hear somebody who's in a panic and breaks out into hives. Like, we know that physical stimuli cause emotional stimuli cause physical reactions. So we know that and we live it. But when anything becomes chronic, or when people become confused and in a state of like, I don't know how to feel into this, all of that understanding of the mind-body connection goes out the window, and either they become depressed and anxious because they don't know how to move forward, or they become fixated on their migraines or their fibromyalgia or their symptoms of autoimmune disease or their back, neck, shoulder, knee, hip pain, irritable bowel, stomach, gut issues. You know, we are a society in chronic fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not a sustainable posture for the human animal. The human
Right.
animal is the only animal that is capable of keeping itself in fight or flight. Like regular animals, they're grazing on the savannah, they're at the watering hole, the lion comes on through, and everybody gets tense, right? And they have all this amazing unspoken communication and telepathy that happens between them, and everybody's tensing. Like, are we going to run as a
Yeah.
group? And then if the lion clearly, energetically, just keeps walking down the savannah and disappears into the woods, maybe it's just fed on somebody else, everybody gets the message, kind of shakes it off, and they just keep drinking at the watering hole. Like, animals understand threat and removal of threat. Human beings don't, because we have such an evolved brain that we can make meaning and assign fear to things that are so complex because they're interwoven with trauma. And so
Mm.
when I help people feel, the first thing I do is teach them that our minds and our bodies are intricately connected, and there is no way to select for one or select for the other. So I kind of start with my prescription is knowledge. I spend a
Mm.
ton of time, the first third of the book, explaining the brain science, explaining you to you. Our goal is we are going to teach yourself. Because
Yeah.
when you learn you, whether it's about your neurodivergence, whether it's about what, you know, your energetic mismatch to your family, or whatever it is that your story is, you can quiet the shame. You
Mm-hmm.
can give the shame that expiration date and put it in the trash because it's not helping you. And then you can embody the tools to change your life.
Incredible. So you go so deep into trauma, and I've been doing readings lately where spirit has been saying, if you took a person and break them up into like a pie chart of what is happening within the physical body, you could make like 1/3, they said, is chemicals and the food that we're eating and all of like the environmental stuff. 1/3 is the stress, just how much you're talking about that fight or flight. And then 1/3 would be kind of mindset and
Hmm.
past limiting beliefs
Yes.
that are still ruminating within us. And so when I paused and meditated on that, I was like, so 2/3 of what we're dealing with within our physical body, according to the angels and spirit, is really not environmental, it's emotional, and mind based. So I was wondering, where do you see the intersect of spirituality? I believe that we're spiritual beings first and foremost. We're souls. We're here for a time. We go back to our home on the other side. Um, I believe that as we go through our journey, we're constantly picking up different things. To your point about being a child, we're taking it into the physical body, into through the chakras, through the cells, the tissues, the organs, and we're holding on to it. Where do you see spirituality, the intersect of all of this?
Yes, I love this question. So remember, your perception is your reality. And
Hmm.
I really think that people need to dive deep into that sentence because it is the truest thing. So, for example, if you walk down the street and you think you're beautiful, It actually does not matter what you, quote, look like, meaning you will never know what other people think of you, really, and you will never be able to make anything more real than what you truly and deeply believe about yourself. And it interacts with absolutely everything that comes into your life. Similarly, if you believe you are in danger, so let's say you're walking down the street and it's maybe dusk and you see a shadow around like a bush that's like 30 feet in front of you. If you, in your quick mind, decide that you see a predator of some sort, maybe it is a person that can attack you, maybe it is a snarling dog, and you're like, is that dog on a leash? What's going to happen is your entire system is going to react as if you were actually in danger. There is no difference. Your perception is your reality in the mind-body system, according to brain science. And by the way, everything I say is scientifically backed. I just want people to know that, because although spirituality is legitimately my favorite conversation, you should know that there's nothing light about this, which is fantastic, because it is the intersection to me of spirituality and science. So your nervous system will go into fight or flight. Your digestion, circulation, respiration, all the things that change when we are in danger will change, and you will begin to prepare physically to escape or to fight or to freeze. Or if it's an emotional situation, to fawn, right? To completely lose yourself in the needs of another person to save your own life, which a lot of us have as children in traumatic and abusive situations because we're powerless as children. So as you approach that, quote, predator, let's say you get a little closer and you're like, oh my God, it's a branch waving in the breeze.
Yeah.
Immediately you will understand that you're safe, but it will take your system a little bit to just kind of realize it, and everything will reset. So I guess the reason I'm saying that is I really totally agree that when you say 2/3 of our experience is in this spiritual, energetic, emotional realm, because the emotional and the spiritual inform the physical, inform even things like the food you eat. Like your hunger, sure, if you haven't eaten all day, you are physically hungry, but come on. Anybody knows that emotional hunger is probably more prevalent than physical hunger. Like, we all know what it's like to feel hungry when we feel like we're not getting fed in other ways. We all know what it's like to feel the need for something physical when our emotional world is bereft. And so I'm not saying that nothing is physical. Certainly you need to eat healthy food. Certainly you should move your body, be in fresh air, all those things, of course. But I think that the interaction between our perceptive safety, our being fed spiritually, being fed energetically and emotionally, is so interactive with the physical that it's inextricable. It's inextricable. And as I teach people and as I watch them go from completely confused and stuck to awakening, which can be painful, because waking up is like the caterpillar going into the chrysalis and becoming the butterfly. You know, it is not easy, but I watch people move through this process, and then I watch them have such a command over this interaction between the physical and the psychological and the emotional. It's stunning to watch the changes in people.
Interesting. You know, we're living at this totally weird point in history where there is so much information that, to your point before about like getting a headache and just kind of like running to figure out what it is, you wouldn't just run to the hospital. But there's so many people out there. I was just talking to an angel Reiki student of mine who wants to go into medical mediumship, and I'm training her. And she's like, there's so many charlatans, and she's got her nursing degree. And I feel that too of, starting in the fall, I think it was August 2024, I have been diagnosed with, and they know because they've done the surgery, I have intense endometriosis. I get cysts, PCOS. And I get this chronic pain, like these endometriosis flare ups that come, and they tend to last about 3 to 6 months. But this time around, it wasn't just kind of in my ovaries, my uterus section. It was also throughout my entire body of like achiness in my shoulders. I even feel it today, just achiness all over, kind of like a fibromyalgia. And so you go in, and first you have to wait so long to get into these doctor's appointments. And you have to go one doctor after another. You go in for endometriosis, and they say, okay, well, the solution is you have a hysterectomy. You just take everything out. And I did so much research on that. And I have a lot of family who's had hysterectomies. And I know, it is an answer for some people. It's not an answer for me. In my family, it did not address the situation. Having to be on hormones afterwards created an entirely new set of problems. Then you kind of bring in holistic medicine, functional practitioners, and you just don't know who to trust or where to go to. There's a lot of money involved, and I feel like the average person probably can't afford to do much of that at all. But then you go to one person, and that can eat up all of your funds. I'm just wondering what your perspective is on this. And obviously, I've done a ton of work. I've gotten so many different tests underneath the sun. Everything has come back negative. Thank goodness, right? Like no cancer, no colon cancer, which runs in the family, just a whole bunch of things. Done a lot of work with my angels on the emotional aspect of this. But where does your everyday person start when chronic pain starts to rear its head?
Okay. So, Julie, this is the most important question you will ask me today. And I'm going to say something very revolutionary.
Yay.
So, I think that if you're ready, and I do believe in terms of spirituality, true readiness is everything. And I can say what I'm about to say to you, and certain people will have it be an inflection point, the moment that changes their entire life. And certain people are not ready, and I have zero judgment for that. I've been doing this work for over 20 years. But I'm going to say something to you. I've interviewed many people who have endometriosis, endometrial pain, and it has spread. It has then been diagnosed as fibro or as complex regional pain disorder. There's a lot of different diagnoses that people have gotten. I've interviewed people who have had hysterectomies and the pain still doesn't go away. Yeah. I have beautiful success stories because I've been doing my podcast since 2018, I think. So there are hundreds of episodes and several of are about that. So I just want you to know this is not a new question for me because it's important that you know that. There was a day in the world when the world was flat, and every person knew it. Not agreed, knew it. Why did they know it? Because they rode their horse from here to there, and it was flat, and it is flat, and they went to the nearest body of water, and they looked at the horizon, and it was flat, and there was no conversation, and like you were so weird or dumb or ignorant, or you should be burned at the stake if you disagreed, because it's flat and it's so obviously flat, right? I believe that we sit in my field of mind-body medicine at the inflection point that is that profound, because the world is not flat. And if we had thought it was, imagine how limited we would be. I do not think that the pain of endometriosis or the condition of endometriosis is concocted or faked. It's real. There are findings. Just like I have a finding called degenerative spondylolisthesis. It is a severe abnormality of my lower spine. And when I was 19, my back went out completely. I was in so much severe pain. My father had to carry me to the bathroom at 19. Certainly that was not something that I was making up or creating. I was not hysterical. I was dying. And they brought me home from college, and they took my MRI, my x-rays, and they found this finding. And of course, because the world is flat and I can see it and I can walk my horse from here to there. Every doctor thought that that was the reason for my pain, because it was a very, and continues to be a very severe finding. So that was why I was 19. So they sat me down and they said, listen, spinal fusion surgery is the recommended surgery, just like hysterectomy is for endo, but there's no guarantee of pain cessation. And you will have decreased mobility for life. Just like if you have a hysterectomy, you won't be able to have a child and you have to be on hormones. So it's actually a pretty similar situation. And they said, so you're 19 and otherwise healthy. You don't need to have it now, but here's what you do need to do. No more travel, no more exercise, no more riding in the car for more than an hour. You have to sleep in very specific positions to stabilize your back. And the likelihood that you'll have a biological child is slim to none, because the weight of a baby on a back as disordered and tentative as yours could cause a catastrophic event. So I'm literally told this at age 19. Cut to, and obviously in one podcast, there's no way to get to all of it, but I learn about mind-body medicine. I'm introduced to the work of Dr. John Sarno, who is the grandfather of mind-body medicine, who ended up becoming my mentor and my colleague in the by and by. I learn about this mind-body connection that we're talking about. I understand that although pain is real, there is brain science behind why signals of inflammation, pain, muscle constriction, spasm, neuropathy are sent into the body. It's not that it's not that you're experiencing it differently than if your arm were severed. It's the same experience, but the genesis of the pain is in this chronic fight or flight, in this confused protection that the brain is trying to send. So the reason I'm telling you this right now is that I am 52 as we speak. I have 3 children. I exercise till the day they were born. I can run 5 miles on the beach on a good day. I have no limitations in my life, and I have the exact same findings on my MRI. Nothing has changed, and nothing has degenerated either. Now, those doctors, and I tell the whole story in this book, but those doctors were not wrong in that they were doing the best they could with what they had. Because when the earth looks flat, you cannot blame people for calling it flat. So the reason that I say this to you today, Julie, is because what the trajectory you're on, and I've seen it many, many times, which is you get a diagnosis. Yours happens to be endometriosis. It is real. There is a surgery. There are findings. But because there is no, if you have an infection, you take an antibiotic. I give my children and I take antibiotics. I'm not a person against Western medicine. If I had a tumor, I would get it removed via surgery. If I had cancer, God knows, I would do everything I could. But these chronic conditions that don't have, once your tests all come back negative, like you said, that don't have curable solutions, fall into this mind-body realm. And I say this not to scare you, but I say this because I've just seen it over and over. When you don't understand the genesis of it, they get worse. So you're already starting to see what happens. It started with endometriosis. They found something. Then you get these flares. The flares are real. Why they're happening is what I want to discuss. But then it starts getting worse. The pain starts traveling. There is nothing wrong with you. I can say this definitively. I don't need to know you because you've gotten all your negative tests. Like I would never be in place of your doctor. But I've heard your story so many times. I joke around with people. I'm like, oh, your story's boring. But I make that as a joke because obviously I know everybody's pain story doesn't feel boring to them, but it's excellent news that it's boring to me because my story is boring to me too. Even though I was told that I basically was like 90 years old at 19, that was never the truth for me. And so I seek to inspire. If you, Julie, today decide to take this little gift I am offering you and decide to look at your health in a completely different way, which is why I'm saying it's revolutionary, because I'm actually asking you to believe that the world is round when all you can see is flat earth. But I believe that in short order, because Dr. Sarno started practicing in the 50s at NYU. He practiced for 50 years there. I was so blessed to be his colleague and his mentee, and to now be carrying the torch officially via his estate for his work. Having said that, I know that I live in a very progressive moment where the consciousness of our planet is rising to the point where we are going to be able to take these notions and to embody them and to
Yeah.
put them to practice, which is why I spend so much time living in the solution.
Well,
And
let's
that,
go to that. Yeah, to that solution piece because I feel like there are so many people who are going through things in order to be a voice to others.
yes,
Amy Schumer is one that I've looked at who has gone through Cushing's disease and she's had a lot going on. And if she hadn't gone through that, she wouldn't know how, it wouldn't be out there, the
yeah,
education. And
yes,
so I've gone through things in the past and it's a very vulnerable situation to put yourself in because there are podcast listeners with so many people who will email me and say, well, what are you doing wrong? Where are you out of sync with your spirituality? I think that there's a lot of people in situations who are meant to teach on this and to step into it at a bigger depth. And you can't do that without the experience of actually going
100%.
through it.
Yes.
So I want to go solution based for me, but then I also want to just kind of throw in there so that you can speak to it. I love your book and how you talk about the spine.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, we can certainly talk offline because my partner Lisa has the most severe scoliosis on film and she has no pain and she is like really, really well, even though you can see it. I mean, like this
Yeah,
is a structural abnormality. You can see it just like you can put your finger
right.
down my spine and you can feel my spondylolisthesis, but it doesn't cause any pain. And when doctors and surgeons have looked at her films, they have said, I can't even believe you can breathe. It looks like your spine is like sitting on your lung and she runs, she's fine. So I do think a lot of
Wow.
our fear and meaning that we place on things causes more physical pain and problems because the muscles and the nerves and
Mm-hmm.
the all the cells of our body are so connected to this brain science around why inflammation, constriction, and spasm and neuropathy are sent. So it's just the best thing I can say in a short conversation where all we can really do is get people curious
Yeah.
is to say, replace your fear with curiosity, replace your
Mhm.
skepticism with curiosity. Just stay open. Because if you stay open without fear, it's incredible what kind of information that you can take in and you can learn about. So, in terms of living in the solution, in terms
Yeah.
of the way I help people, first of all, I lead with my personal story. I'm not going to have time to tell all of it here, but I lived this. I literally lived this. I am my own science experiment, which is why I'm so able to teach it. And then I took what I learned in myself and I've worked with tens of thousands of people around the world, 20 years of best practices put into this book. So it is exciting because it's but a book to have one place where 20 years of best practices are in one place, it's just super exciting. But I'll explain really quick. There's a reservoir inside of every one of us that is full of shame and rage and terror and grief, not light stuff, the stuff that we don't feel comfortable talking about in polite conversation. And it kind of bubbles in there in this reservoir because it's really unconscious. We have a sense of what makes us angry, but we don't tap into our rage because it feels really inconvenient. It also feels like people won't like us if we really embody it. So we unconsciously repress it. But every one of us is living every day in society and we have daily triggers. And so that reservoir starts bubbling up and knocking on the door of consciousness and threatening to inform us of how enraged we are, how terrified we are, how paralyzed, how we have so much grief we're going to drown. And when it happens, the nervous system goes into fight or flight because that's a problem the brain can't solve for. The brain seeks predictability. The brain will choose a predictable hell over an unpredictable freedom. It doesn't understand. It's our job to be aware. So when we go into fight or flight, then what happens? Pain signals are sent into the body because pain is a protective mechanism. And when we get a symptom, we repress again because there's no time to think about emotions. You have to go to the
Mm.
doctor. You have to doctor Google. You have to help your daughter. Whatever it is that distracts us, The
Yeah.
symptoms calm. And this is why we're a society in chronic illness, because if the brain can keep you in a place where it can predict, it actually will. It's not against you, it's just confused. So
Mm-hmm.
what I teach people is a very specific, I would say it's a subset of things to do. It involves mindset and belief, because teaching brain science and understanding the optimal mindset to be in the round earth versus the flat earth place. So that's what I
Which
do a
the
lot.
angel said was 1/3. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I teach that. And once you're in the right mindset and you're in like fertile ground, I
Mm-hmm.
teach a very specific expressive writing tactic called journal speak, where it's like putting a ladle in the reservoir and dumping it out. It's a 20-minute practice followed by 10 minutes of meditation. You destroy it as soon as you're done. It's just a very targeted expressive writing practice. And then the third leg of the stool is patience and kindness for yourself, a very concrete self-compassion practice where you understand that if you don't have self-compassion in your life, it is like bailing out a boat with the hole in the bottom. You are constantly unconsciously just crapping on yourself,
Yeah.
just stealing from yourself, just being your own worst enemy, and you don't even realize it. So I
Yeah.
teach those three facets, and then I tell stories. Like every chapter ends with a person's story in their own words. These are
Yeah.
people that wrote their own stories to inspire you, from people from all walks of life, genders, socioeconomic backgrounds, areas of the world that have completely resolved their chronic pain and have more energy and aren't fatigued. And like a person like you, your success story would be, I have endometriosis, I have the findings, I got all checked out, but I still had all this pain. I did this work to regulate my nervous system, and I am pain free. I am not on any medication. I do not need it. I am free. And I
Yeah.
really, Julie, I want that for you.
Thank you. I know that you have a success story that you wanted to share too, with Rachel Platten.
Oh my God. Yes. Okay. So it's more than just a success story. It's actually a bit of a magical spiritual story. So
Ooh.
I'll try to make it really short. So my daughter Charlotte, when she was about 6 or 7 years old, she was obsessed with Rachel Platten.
Mm,
And like it was like when Fight Song was really big,
yeah.
but her whole album. I
Yeah.
know every word by heart. And so we got tickets for the Rachel Platten concert in Philadelphia. We were living on the East Coast at the time, and we waited in line for like 2 hours outside the venue so we could have her right up front, 'cause she was so little. And we made
Oh,
this huge sign that said, Rachel, I love you, love Charlotte. Okay, so that's important that her name
yes.
is in it. And so we're standing and waiting for Rachel to come out. We're standing and waiting, and she's late. And we get they announce that Rachel is really sick. She's really
Oh,
sick, but she doesn't want to cancel. But she's just trying to get herself together because she has such a bad flu. So we don't leave, we're waiting. And then Rachel comes out, and the poor thing, she's so hoarse, and she's got a fever, and she's sick, and she's like, I just didn't want to cancel on you guys. She's like, I wrote this song, Fight Song, and I have to fight through this for you. And it was very inspiring. So she's
oh,
singing, but when she can't hit the high notes because she's so sick. So every time she hits the high notes, she puts the microphone out. We're all screaming the lyrics with her. And it was just like a really beautiful night. And I kept picking Charlotte up, and over her head, she held up the sign. So later on that night, we drive home, I put her to bed, and I see Rachel's Twitter. And it just said, like, you guys, your support tonight was like everything to me. And then she said, I can almost cry when I say it. She said, Charlotte, you are my heart. Now I'm
oh.
dying because I'm like, she just mentioned my child's name. My child is going to freak out. So this was a million years ago. Charlotte is 17 now. Okay. So this is
Wow.
10 years ago. Cut to, we moved to LA a year and a half ago, and Charlotte and I were in the car right before we moved to LA. I haven't heard Rachel Platten's name from this kid in years, just because, whatever, like you
Yeah.
don't always talk about everything. She turns to me, she goes, did Rachel Platten ever have a second baby? And I go, I don't know. I'm like, I'm not keeping tabs on Rachel Platten. She goes, huh, I don't know. She just popped into my head, and I wondered if she did. And I said to her, 'cause she was a little tentative about moving all the way across the country, making new friends. And I said, you never know, Shar. Maybe when we live in LA, one day we'll know Rachel Platten and her kids. And she was like, haha, yeah, whatever. Who knows? A week later, I am laying in bed and I check my Instagram DMs, and it is a DM from Rachel Platten, a person that I have never had a connection with nor met. And she says, Nicole, I found your work. I'm having terrible back pain. I'm laid up. I need to go on tour. I'm in a panic. Will you help me? So, of course, I'm like losing my mind because of all the alignment and all the synergy. So I text her back and I said, I will help you. You have to hear this story first. And so I tell her
Wow.
this story about how much she's meant to Charlotte and how she just popped in Charlotte's head and how we're moving to LA. And so, of course, I helped her. She is totally free of her back pain. She speaks about it publicly. We're going to do a little bit more next week for my book launch. And of course, Charlotte and I came as the guests to her concert in LA, and she was able to meet Charlotte, and I've been able to meet her children. And it's just such a beautiful full circle story of human connection that I just love.
Oh, I love it. It's such an angel story. I
Yes.
love how they bring us together.
Yes.
Nicole, you're amazing. Your new book, Mind Your Body, a revolutionary program to release chronic pain and anxiety, is out now when this podcast is airing. Tell everybody where they can find the book and where they can find you.
Find the book anywhere you get books. It is everywhere, and I look forward to it growing wings just like an angel and flying all over the world and helping
Oh,
people inspire and heal themselves. Find me at NicoleSachs.com, and I wish you love, I wish you light, and I want to inspire you that you have so much more power than you realize to affect your physical and emotional health.
it's beautiful. Thank you so much for spending your time here. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Friends, you know when spirit is trying to get a hold of you, what's calling to your heart. If you happen to feel called to work with me, book a one-on-one reading with me, join the Angel Reiki School to develop all of your spiritual gifts to the max, to become an angel messenger yourself. Or if what you're looking for is really to work on yourself, your own healing, your own personal relationship with your angels, to know for yourself who exactly is on your spirit team, which angels are working with you, which loved ones in heaven are on your team, and what are they working on you with? What's your purpose? Why are you here? That is all in my angel membership. You can find all of it over at theangelmedium.com. That's theangelmedium.com. And if you ever want more information, just reach out to me. I'm happy to chat. You can find that in the show notes, or you can email us over at julie@theangelmedium.com. Love you, friends. Have a beautiful, beautiful, blessed day.